Good afternoon and welcome to this week's meeting of the Rotary Club of Toledo, Club number 44, organized in 1912. We are broadcasting live today from the newly renovated Glass City Center in the heart of beautiful downtown Toledo, the new home of Toledo Rotary. Today's speaker is Ebbert and Tami Norris from Cherry Street Missions to talk a bit about the program, services, and workforce training that they offer. My name is Matthew and I will be your host today. If you experience any issues with today's broadcast, please send me a private message through the Zoom platform. If you do miss any part of today's meeting or you see something awesome that you want to make sure your friends and family or coworkers are aware of, you can check the link that I will be posting. We do have a YouTube page. It's youtube.com/@Toledo Rotary 1656, or you can check the link in Thursday Spoke. Every Thursday, Executive Director Jackie sends out an email between 12 and 8 a.m. that has a ton of fascinating information about what happened in the week before and what is coming up. So I would like you to thank you for attending today's meeting. Our meeting shall begin shortly. I know we are waiting for one of our presenters who should be here any moment. Again, next week's meeting will be at the Huntington Center and the aquarium, and I have not received any communication that there will be a Zoom broadcast. So if you do wish to attend next week's meeting, it's a great time to come out, hang out in the aquarium when we do Rotary on the road. If you have not had a chance to check out last Thursday's Spoke, there is a survey in the Spoke from the Community Services Committee. The Community Services Committee. I'm going to try and get that link in. There we go. I just posted the link in the chat for the Community Service Committee Sound the Alarm survey. Please go ahead and complete that if you have not already. There's an informational meeting for the Rotaract Club on Tuesday, March 14th. So that's tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the Public Library Mott Branch on Dorr Street. More details for that informational meeting on the Rotaract Club are in Thursday's Spoke. There's a program committee meeting at 1 o'clock today. I don't know exactly where that is, but I'm pretty sure it's here at the Glass City Center. There is a book club, by the way, if you guys are not aware, that meets March 14th at 5:30 p.m. at Poco Piatti on Central Avenue. If you're interested, mdavies@artstoledo.com, mdavies@artstoledo.com. If you are interested in the book club, the meeting's tomorrow at 5:30. Again, we are just I know President Cindy's informed us we're just waiting on one person to hop up here, so I expect that our meeting shall begin very, very soon. So if I have not already, welcome to Yolanda, past President Walt, Jason, James, Gary, welcome to everyone today. Our meeting should begin shortly. Today's lunch at the Glass City Center looked to be chicken fajitas, a really good salad, and potato dish, and all the accompaniments, desserts, and stuff like that. I see quite a lot of Rotarians coming into the room with heaping plates, so I guess it looks really good. Again, today's meeting is going to be Ann and Tami from Cherry Street Ministries, Cherry Street Mission Ministries. And we're going to help them celebrate their 75th anniversary. So we're going to learn about program services and workforce training offered at Cherry Street that create a hand up, not a handout. So they've asked us to envision the future with them as they take their first steps into their next 75 years, offering hope to those hungry for change. Let's see. For those of you who did not catch Thursday's Spoke, we recently, or the recent meeting, Nostra Gente Community Projects got a Rotary grant from the Community Services Committee for $10,000 for security updates to their facility. We handed them a nice big check. Again, I am watching. It looks like our speakers are heading to the podium, so I do expect our meeting to begin momentarily. Alrighty, President Cindy's heading to the podium. Please go ahead and mute yourselves. And again, thank you for attending.
Good afternoon, Rotarians, guests, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Now would be a great time to check in on your social media. Let everybody know that you're at this great meeting at the Glass City Center, and then be sure to turn your ringers down. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our AV microphone issues that have happened at the last couple meetings, and to extend a deep apology to all of you. We understand how frustrating it can be when technical difficulties disrupt, especially for our speakers. Our AV team of Dominic and Zach quickly reviewed the situation, and it was determined that the Glass City Center venue was performing updates that impacted the program. We've addressed it with the venue, so it will not happen again. And we'd like to remind you that our AV team works diligently to troubleshoot any problems that occur, and they deserve good respect. Anything can happen during live events, and we appreciate you understanding.
Good morning, everyone. Today we will hear about, whoop, a little loud, huh? Today we will hear about the work of Cherry Street Mission Ministries. While I was somewhat familiar with their work, I thought it would be a good idea to look at their website and printed materials in preparing for today's invocation. I was struck by a phrase I came across, that the calling of Jesse and Bertha Fleck, who founded Cherry Street Mission Ministries, was to provide sustenance for the body and nourishment for the soul. While their work was Christian in nature, this phrase, sustenance for the body and nourishment for the soul, is a tenet of most religions, spiritual practices, and even self-help programs. For to nourish the soul, the body must first be nourished. While we understand how to sustain the body, we may not understand how to nourish the soul. So let us now pray, hope, meditate, or reflect as you wish on some ways to nourish the soul, one of which you may recall from a previous Rotary presentation. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Everything you do, do with love. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Every life has a story if we bother to read it. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And finally, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Now, please join me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm going to do my best. Thanks so much, Carol. Welcome. Thank you to Donna Bogan and Hartman Bogan, who are this month's meeting sponsor. We appreciate that. If anyone has any guests that they'd like to introduce, can you please come forward to the floor mic? We'll see if it's working. If it's not, you can go ahead and introduce them. I have a guest here today. It is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna brain fart now. Lauren Hollub from Jenna Cross. She is the marketing and outreach person for their home health division.
of Women of Toledo, Sierra Otis. And I'm excited to even invite her to join our Rotary, the Young Professional Rotary for Toledo. Thank you.
President Cindy, my guest today is Mr. John Irwin from St. Paul's Community Center. He's the Vice President of Finance, and I'm pleased to have him with us today.
Thank you all. Sorry about that. Next up is Tony Washington, who's the chairman of the International Services Committee, who's going to introduce some of our special guests here today with fellow Rotarian Nina Corder.
Let everybody get up here so we can get a nice view. Thank you, President Cindy. It is my pleasure today to introduce not only our Rotarian Nina Corder, but also her group from the Great Lakes Community Partnership. Originally from Malaysia, Rotarian Nina Corder is founder and managing director of Women of Toledo, a nonprofit that advocates for diversity, equity, and inclusion with a focus on women's economic empowerment in the workplace and marketplace and community. Beyond just managing Women of Toledo, Nina always aims at leveraging her leadership capacity and talent to continue serving at national and global levels. Her involvement includes serving in the Obama administration White House Council for Women and Girls in 2015 and UN Women Empowerment Women Fellowship in 2017. In 2022, Nina participated in the Professional Fellows program managed by the Great Lakes Community Partnership, funded by the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, and Global Leaders Division. She served as a mentor to 2 leaders from Eastern Europe last year. This two-way governance and society program is entitled Shaping Participatory Democracy for Emerging Leaders from Albania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and the United States, which Nina traveled last fall, conducting joint training and working with foreign counterparts in their workplaces and communities. Then Nina travels to Southeast Asia for 6 weeks to participate in the Give Work project that combats poverty in developing countries, partnering with multiple local NGOs in Southeast Asia. During that time, she was able to support UN Women Asia Pacific to conduct a mapping project for the women's economic hubs in Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Singapore. But today is not about Nina. It is about Nina's guest standing here. Under Nina's leadership, Women of Toledo, in collaboration with World Affairs of Northwest Ohio, hosted by Great Lakes Community Action Partnership, designed a program to help participants to develop their leadership, entrepreneurial, and creative skills through capacity building and sharing best practices to overcome discrimination in rural areas. Toledo Rotary welcomes the 6 members of the Open World Delegation from Moldova on rural women's entrepreneurship. The delegation will be in Northwest Ohio between March 10th and 18th. It is funded by the Congressional Office for International Leadership. This is Nina and Women of Toledo's 3rd time offering their service to the GLC Open World Delegations. First in spring 2019, then in 2022, and this year in 2023. Our region has many organizations and successful programs to help women entrepreneurs such as Women of Toledo, and learning about them will contribute to new methods that can be also implemented in Moldova. The delegation will also learn how to develop an entrepreneurial mindset and culture of making social change in local communities. We all know that entrepreneurial and interconnected rural women's communities can create an impact and shift mindsets with regard to gender roles, leadership, and creativity. Innovation and economic empowerment in the ecosystem. The delegation will receive training and practical experiences at the women-owned businesses and also share their experience from Moldova with Northwest Ohio partners. Participants will learn from professional networking programs such as attending the Women of Toledo Her Hub luncheon this Thursday, as well as get a better understanding of business leaders who are involved in community service activities through visiting the Toledo Rotary Club today. Please welcome them as our special guests at today's meeting. And I believe the group has a special gift for President Cindy.
Madam President, dear Rotarians, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Good. Because we have a small gift from Moldova because it's March month, and usually in March we celebrate the spring, and this celebration comes from previous time when the first March was symbolizing the start of the year, because we are an agriculture country. And we wear every month of March, a March shore, that it's a small mart. And this symbolizes the fight between winter and spring. And spring finally wins. Let's hope here too. And we'll have spring, and we wear it for the whole month. And at the end of the month, on April 1st, we choose a tree that still has flowers, or will have flower, depends of the weather outside. We put it on the tree, and we are saying how many flowers are on the tree, so many blessings to come in my family, in my community. So we want to share this Shore with Madam President to say thank you for having us here. It's a great honor to present to you these amazing ladies from Moldova, from rural area, that are trying to do something for their community, to go back to their community. And I want to think that after the program, they will be a real go-getters that will make a change in our community. And you will hear from them. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this pin and what it represents. Thank you, Tony, for the great introduction, and Nina for all that you're doing for women internationally and here in Toledo. Okay, we have a busy afternoon still. At this time, I'd like to call Brian Kennedy to the podium, the chair of the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation, and he was going to recognize a few special Rotarians who are with us here today.
I think we all should be very proud of the service organization such as Rotary that has existed and thrived in Toledo for 111 years. Equally remarkable is the combined 312-year philanthropy of some members in this room that are here with us today. For 50 or more years, they have made contributions to the foundation and its predecessor, the Goodfellows Fund. You will notice on the screen, there's a series of abbreviations after their names. For those of you who may not be familiar with those abbreviations, the PP stands for past president. Walt Churchill was past president from 1984 to 85. Rick Hartley from 88 to 89. They were both Rotary Club presidents. The PH stands for a Paul Harris Fellow. This denotes a $1,000 contribution to Rotary International. All of these members are Paul Harris Fellows, many of them multiple times. The PC stands for President's Club, an annual contribution to the Toledo Rotary Foundation of $250 or more. Finally, the 1912 Fellow, a contribution of $1,000 to our own Toledo Rotary Club Foundation Endowment Fund. Contributions from these loyal members, combined with gifts for others, is the reason why the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation has the opportunity to distribute over $200,000 in grants annually in Northwest Ohio and globally. Please join me in raising your glass to our Rotarians in tribute to Walt, Rick, Bob, Tom, and Bruce for their service and philanthropy. Greg was unable to join us today because he's enjoying the much finer weather in Florida than we are having here right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and congratulations to all of you. Keep the money rolling in. Okay, at this time, I'd like to recognize a couple of individuals for their hard work and present them each with the Paul Harris Award. When I call your name, if you could please come to the stage, I'd appreciate it. The first one up is Cassidy Lape Wood, the event coordinator with the Toledo Lucas County Library. We'd like to thank her for invaluable assistance in coordinating our meetings for the 9 months our club met at the main library. Your professionalism and attention to detail were instrumental in ensuring that our meetings ran smoothly and without a hitch. Your kindness and willingness to help us in any way possible made a significant difference, and it was a pleasure working with you, Cassidy. Thank you. Next up is Matt Adkins. Most of you know that Matt is the man behind our hybrid meetings. I'd like to express our sincerest gratitude for hosting these meetings each week, along with the IT expertise that he provides to the Rotary office, which he's been doing for several years. Your technical expertise is instrumental in ensuring that our Zoom meetings run smoothly. Your help with Zoom allows more Rotarians to stay connected, and we thank you for your continued support and assistance. All right, we're almost there. Pat Sheehan, can you please join us at the podium to give us a little history on Irish Month?
I'm not sure how much I'm going to do on Irish Month, but I did understand it started on March 1st and goes through the 17th, or Irish Week. It's actually 17 days long. St. Patrick's Day is one of my favorite holidays, especially when it falls on a March Madness weekend like it does this weekend. And as we prepare for this holiday, today I'm just going to do a brief shout out to St. Patrick, the man behind the holiday itself. Historians tell us that St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, died on March 17th in the year 461, over 1500 years ago. And how interesting that St. Patrick was not from Ireland. Maewyn Succat was born late in the 4th century in Britain, which at the time was part of the Roman Empire. When Maewyn was 16, his home was invaded by the Irish, and he was sold into slavery in Ireland. While in slavery, he converted to Christianity and changed his name to Patricius, or Patrick. When he was 22, he escaped, went back to Britain, and he joined the monastery. Patrick decided to return to Ireland and made it his life mission to spread Christianity and abolish slavery. He is credited with forming some 300 churches and monasteries, and by the time of his death, slavery had come to an end in Ireland. In learning about St. Patrick, my biggest takeaway is an example of extraordinary forgiveness. His choice to return to Ireland, a land where he had been held in slavery for 6 years, is a great lesson for all of us in putting the past behind and choosing forgiveness, love, and grace. I hope you all have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Thanks.
Oh, all righty. And next up, I'll call President-elect Travis Tangeman to give a brief recap of his PETS training this last weekend.
Hey, everybody. So I'll make this really brief because we're behind schedule. I did have the great opportunity to go to President-elect trainings down in Columbus, where all 5 districts of Ohio came together. And so over 200 president-elects were in the room together, learning, sharing ideas. And we all had the privilege of actually being sworn in by our Rotary International president-elect, Gordon McElhaney from Scotland. And actually, fun little side note, I actually got about 15 minutes of private conversation with Gordon as well. He's an amazing man. His focus for next year He has just an amazing story that involves mental health, and he has a huge focus on mental health, and I truly appreciate that focus. But big takeaway, a lot of great ideas, a lot of excitement. I'm getting really excited for next year, and I hope you all are as well. And just thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Travis. And now what you all been waiting for, I'd like to call Nelson Schaefer up to introduce our speakers for today.
Well, good afternoon. I have the pleasure this afternoon of introducing our speakers from Cherry Street Mission Ministries, who are Ann Ebbert and Tami Norris. And the topic of their presentation is going to be the celebration of the 75th anniversary of Cherry Street, as well as what they envision for the future. So first I'll introduce Ann. Ann is the CEO and president of Cherry Street Mission Ministries. Since 2015, she's been serving as a leader at Cherry Street. She took the role of CEO and president officially in June of 2020 and brings decades of experience to Cherry Street from the business world and from ministry. Having worked in ministry and the healthcare industry, Ann brings a foundation of logistics, running a 24/365 care facility, business operations, administration, organizational structure, developing leadership in others, and purposeful discipleship. Her experience in the healthcare industry has set her up well to work at Cherry Street as transitioning clients from unhealthy lives and into stable lives are very similar processes. According to Ann, when people have a network of support to help them move into a new independent life, they tended to be far more successful than if they try to do it alone. Ann is originally from Bryan, Ohio, and has lived in the region all of her adult life. She's been married to Scott for 34 years. They are dog parents to Monty. Scott and Ann like to be outdoors, hiking, fly fishing, kayaking, and gardening. And Ann always has a book she's reading and likes a diverse variety of book topics, which in my mind might make you a good candidate for Toledo Rotary's book club. And then Tami Norris, and Tami, kind of interestingly enough, I met Tami in the mid-90s. We went to Leadership Toledo together, and at Leadership Toledo, we're in a group and worked on a project together for Toledo Public Schools back at that time. Tami today is a vice president of workforce development at Cherry Street Mission. She recently joined the mission after 16 years as training coordinator in workforce development at Northwest State Community College. She has a bachelor's degree in education and an MBA from University of Toledo. And is currently pursuing a doctorate of organizational development and change at BGSU. She is active in her home church where she serves as a youth minister working with teens. Tami and her husband Gary live in Toledo. They are parents to 3 adult sons, and currently they are blessed to be raising a 2-year-old grandson. And with that, I give you Ann.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is wonderful to be here and look out at this crowd of people who are dedicated to service, because Cherry Street, that's what we do, is we are looking for opportunities to help people make a fresh start. And so what we're going to talk about today is how do we do that? So Tami and I are pleased to every day work together. As soon as I get the technology running. Oh, there we go. Asking that question for every one of our guests that come in to the mission. So we say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today about how that gets done. Speaking of who Tami and I are, let me introduce you to Cherry Street.
Cherry Street is hope for the hopeless, supportive,
revealing purpose,
peace in the chaos, opportunity for renewal and progression,
more than a bed and more than a meal,
The people of Cherry Street are hungry for change. They're hungry for a career, hungry for direction, and hungry for hope.
So if you want to know what we sell at Cherry Street, it's hope. Every day, every person, we want to be able to give somebody an opportunity to see their life afresh. What is it that we do? Cherry Street, our average age of our guest is 35 to 50 years old. We serve people as young as 18, and our oldest guest, as far as I'm aware, was last year. She was 93 years old. So imagine being 93 and have no place to go. 66% of our guests are male, 33% are female, and almost everyone comes from a situation of generational poverty. And what does generational poverty mean? It means you have grown up at least the second generation in poverty, if not the third or fourth generation in poverty. Generational poverty creates its own culture. The individuals that are coming into Cherry Street, for the most part, have experienced things like adverse childhood experiences. So that is poor nutrition, potentially lack of access to education. It is things like regular violence in the home. Things like that create a situation of trauma inside an individual. And when we are living in a life of trauma, it is really hard to get our foot in the right place to take the next step. The only barrier for people coming into Cherry Street is you can be too young. We serve adults only. So anyone under 18 years old, we have the pleasure of being able to help get to another place for services. So if that's a family, a mom and her children, or if that's a youth that may be runaway or has been emancipated from the foster care system, we partner with many of our agencies in town to make sure that they get to a safe place as well. Otherwise, we're considered a low or no barrier place of shelter. So you can walk in any one of our front doors. There is no wrong front door, and receive care 24 hours a day. It's a great place for people to find the opportunities that they need to make a change. It's a great place to start, but we sure as heck don't want you to stay there long. What do? At Cherry Street, we make it our mission to eradicate poverty for individuals. Since individuals are what make up a community, then one person at a time, we are impacting the Toledo regional community as a whole. An interesting but not so rah-rah statistic is Toledo experiences a 24.5% poverty rate as compared to our nation as a whole of 11.6%. So in Toledo, poverty is a real issue. And at Cherry Street, we make it our business to confront that issue that we have. You might notice that when you read our mission statement up there, we do not mention financial poverty. We talk about physical, mental, and spiritual poverty. Consider what happens when you're unwell in any of these areas. Your ability to be a highly productive citizen connected to a job, to relationships, to a great neighborhood, to a community of people who support you really falls apart. We're always looking to solve the root of the issue in a person's life so that the fruit of their life becomes a healthy whole. We envision a time where everyone who is experiencing mental, physical, or spiritual poverty can access the opportunities they need to become well. And when the individual becomes well, so does our city. This, friends, is the graph of how the programs at Cherry Street work. Because the individuals coming out of generational poverty have a complex set of needs. And there's not just one answer to what needs to happen for each individual. I know a lot of people say, well, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Unfortunately, when a person doesn't know what boots are or has never owned a pair, It's hard to understand how to pull those bootstraps up. And so at Cherry Street, we want to gain access to opportunities as quickly as possible. So the first time that somebody comes into Cherry Street, they enter at the top of the funnel, which is called emergency services. And why is it important that they move through emergency services to barrier identification, to programming, and then back out to the community as quickly as possible? For those of you who have wonky needs for numbers, for a person who has been in poverty for 1 year, it takes, or they have about a 56% chance of being able to be on the right side of the poverty line. So 1 year of poverty, 56% chance of being out of poverty in a year. Now compare that to someone who maybe has been experiencing poverty for 7 years. If you've been in poverty for 7 years, you have a 13% chance of being able to get out of poverty. And these are statistics through the Poverty Research Center. Basically, what you know is how you behave. The longer you stay in the culture of poverty, the more acclimated you get to that behavior, and the harder it is to change the behavior. Imagine, what if generational poverty was something that you could fix with a switch? In Toledo, I am sure, because I look around this room and I know many of the faces here, we would not allow that to happen. This is a generous community of people who want to see better for one another. Generational poverty is extremely complex. One of the things that you'll see on the left-hand side of our grid is our image of what's called the stages of change. Anybody coming into Cherry Street is going through the stages of change because the only thing that they have to change when they hit our front door is everything. Imagine if you think about your own life, about the stages of change. I am going to guess there are many of you who are like me out there who have maybe decided that you needed to go on a diet. The stages of change are just as effective in that small scenario as it is for the person who's experiencing the larger scenario of poverty. Contemplation. Contemplation is the stage of deciding to go on a diet. And when you go into your closet and you pull out your favorite pair of jeans and you put them on and you go, oh, those didn't used to fit like that. Contemplation is when you first become aware that it's important to make a change. The second stage is preparation. Preparation is maybe the second or third time you put on those pair of jeans, you start to say, I should probably look up a few things. Preparation is when I'm going to go online, I'm going to look at a few YouTube videos, I'm going to go, oh, so that's what chair aerobics looks like. I might look at what the cost of a Weight Watchers subscription is. I'm starting to make preparation for what I'm going to do next. The third stage of stages of change is action. So now I've not only put on the jeans and I said, oh, those are too tight. And I've done a few researches and I've gone, well, Noom costs this much and Weight Watchers costs that much. And I'm going to make some decisions, but I'm actually going to put my credit card out there and I'm going to join something. I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to decide to visit the produce aisle. I'm going to, instead of the chip aisle. It's so sad that little baby carrots and Cheetos look so alike. But in action stage is when we actually start to make decisions. When we're talking about our guests, those first three stages of the stages of change, contemplation, action, or preparation and then action are mirrored in our funnel here that you see. Contemplation is when somebody comes through our front door for emergency services. Again, there is no wrong front door at Cherry Street. You can come in 24 hours a day. And in those emergency services, you may be similar to the analogy of putting on your jeans that are too tight, going, hey, my life is not working out exactly like I thought it was going to. That does not mean I'm ready, though, to make a change. At Cherry Street, similar to statistics that you will hear about recovery for addiction, many times people come in our front door 2, 3, 6 times before their contemplation moves into preparation. It takes a long time for us as humans to make choices to do something different, no matter how inappropriate our current behavior is. So contemplation moves into preparation at Cherry Street. That is all about the stage of barrier identification. Things are not working out well, but doesn't mean I have the tools in my toolbox to actually make them work well. So we have to decide what I need to do next. In our diet analogy, it was, do I join Weight Watchers or do I become vegan or what am I going to do? At Cherry Street, a lot of times it is things like, I don't have an identification anymore. I don't have my birth certificate, so I can't even get identification. All of those things that need to have a foundation to be able to move forward. Because if you don't have your social security number, or if you don't have an ID, there's nothing you're going to do to move forward to get a job, for sure. So barrier identification is all about preparation. And then the third stage, action, is programming. At Cherry Street, we have 2 different programs. One is called Ready for Life, and that is all about getting you ready for a different kind of life. All of us have a life. The question is your life working? And so Ready for Life is all about, what are you going to do to have reliable income, safe and affordable housing, and a healthy support system. The healthy support system sounds like the squishiest of the 3, doesn't it? And yet, when you think about your own life, think about the myriads of people that surround you every day that make your life stay whole. I mean, it's things like your friends and your family. Nelson was telling me about a Friday evening dinner that he has. I'm sure they wouldn't let you out of your Friday evening dinner, right? Friends and family is healthy support, but it's also things like, I have a banker, I have a dentist, I have a primary care physician. So healthy supports are both personal as well as professional. And then the last stage of Cherry Street, which is what all of you want to hear about, is how the heck do you get out of shelter? Cherry Street is a great place to start. It's a terrible place to stay. And so our last phase that you'll see is called maintenance. And that is all about entering the community with supportive services. For individuals using Cherry Street, we are willing and ready to track with you for a year after exiting into your own apartment. Because for individuals who are accustomed to an institutionalized environment, it's very hard to get back out on your own and live. Almost everyone's a single adult that we work with, right? So they live in an apartment by themselves. Their healthy support system is kind of new and fresh, right? So it's hard to call on people. And so we act as that temporary support system until somebody is back up on their feet and fully functioning. The average statistic is if you can stay out of shelter for 90 to 120 days, so that's basically a half a year, you probably will not re-enter shelter in your lifetime. That's the hurdle that we work to get people over, so that the only reason we want to see people come back to Cherry Street is if they come back as a volunteer or as a donor, basically. So that is the system of Cherry Street. The only thing we haven't talked about is that last arrow over there on the far right-hand side called high acuity. There is a decent number of individuals who come through our front door, and they need a level of care that is far beyond what Cherry Street can provide. What they need is something like a nursing home placement, or assisted living, or a group home, or a detoxification facility. That individual is probably not going to enter into Tami's workforce development classes and become a welder at that moment. So for those individuals, we provide a staff member to help case manage their exit to a more appropriate level of housing. And that way, the individual not only is cared for while they're at Cherry Street, but also they get to the place they need to be at and receive the care they need for the long term. In 2022, we served 1,754 unique individuals. Some of those folks stayed with us one day and one day only. Some of those folks stayed with us 365 days and everything in between. For the average individual, they stay 48 days at Cherry Street. So for 48 days, if you're the average person, you're coming in the door, you're making a decision about whether you want to stay in emergency services or move into programming. And then you are working with a navigator through the programming stage and then out into the community. So it's not a very long period of time that we work with people to make sure that they get healthy and are ready to re-enter our community. You see that we served over 132,000 meals out of our cafe. That cafe at the Life Revitalization Center is open 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. The other thing that's really unique about that space, it is open to everybody. So if for some reason you decide at lunch one day, you might like to talk to people that you wouldn't normally see in your daily life, we would like to invite you. Come have lunch with us. You'll meet some of the most interesting people that are around Toledo. And you might find out they're not that much different than what your life looks like. In 2022, we have experienced an entirely different scenario than what we experienced in 2019. So in July of 2019, about 50% of our beds on a regular basis were occupied by somebody. That meant any given day, if somebody needed to access services, they could come in our front door and be ready to go. In July of 2022, we are experiencing about 90% occupancy. That's a significant increase in need. And what we are attributing that to is a post-pandemic reality in our nation, really. The kind of perfect storm of things coming together, of high inflation, landlords increasing rent, which they can and they should. They're in business to make money. And significant mental illness changes after the pandemic. Those folks who were just clinging on the edge before the pandemic hit, many of them have needed a safety net afterwards. And so today we have high levels of need in our community of people who are experiencing homelessness for the very first time. So we're super thankful at Cherry Street to be in the position for our community to take care of individuals. For those almost 1,800 people last year, they could come in and they could get immediate access to healthy support systems, safe and affordable housing, and reliable income. Tami, who's going to come up next, is our Vice President of Workforce Development, where hundreds of people just last year got access to not just a job, but a career.
So I'm really happy to be here and tell you a little bit about a passion point for me. The workforce development program at Cherry Street. It sounds very interesting that they would be having these training classes, but this program, we actually started doing this around 2015, 2016. And I am just thrilled to say that I have been there with it since the inception of it. So albeit in a different role, working with the colleges at that time. But it's been a thrill to see how this has developed over the years. You know, as we think about why offering the programming at our facility, I think through the folks that I talk to on a regular basis that are going through the training. And many of them have not necessarily had successful educational experiences when they were younger. So the concept of just saying, hey, just go across town and take this thing, you know, is very off-putting. It can be very nervous for them to try to navigate a college campus or to try to figure out how I'm going to do this on my own. So by having them involved with the programming right at Cherry Street, we have the wonderful opportunity to stay intersected and to help guide them through. And then one of the steps that they sometimes will take is to go on to that next step. So we were very excited to have a couple of our students who have been through our welding program to go on to Owens Community College and complete at that time. They got their feet under them starting at our facility, and then we're ready to go on to those next steps. We currently offer in-house 6 career programs, and those are things like welding, tool and die, building trades, office specialist, and they all are in partnership with our community college partners, Northwest State Community College and Owens Community College. But as you kind of alluded to when Ann was talking earlier, we're not doing this on our own. We realize that it takes the whole community to come together to work with our supports or to support our folks here. So as we see, we have our workforce development participant at the center of this hub. And then through our partnerships and agencies, and we wrap them with the services that they need to help them on those next steps towards successful and sustainable employment. Of course, our staff are just the most wonderful people that I've had the chance to work with, and they have great experiences that they bring in the social services and trauma-informed care that they bring into the equation. And we do have social service agency partners that refer to us and stay intersected. So we're just happy to be involved with folks like OOD and Pathways and Goodwill, who stay intersected with folks that come over for the training. Employers are a very important part of this. So when we offer and set up these programs, it wasn't in a vacuum. We wanted to make sure that the programs that we offered were leading to jobs here in the Toledo community. So we look at what's on the in-demand jobs list for Lucas County, and we stay in touch with those employers. They look at the curriculum, they come in and talk to the classes, and they hire from our programs. Now, employment agencies are sometimes a great way to get folks started. So we have great partnerships with folks like Wren Hill and several others, Minuteman, from across the area. And again, they are staying involved. They come in and meet with the classes and the students. Sometimes they're there to help somebody get a temporary job to just get going, but they're also there to help connect folks to careers. Our educational partners, I mentioned Northwest and Owens. We also are integrated with Opportunity Kitchen through Catholic Charities. So some of our students will go to their program as well. They bring the content specialty to this programming. Volunteers are just another great part of what we do. So we have several retired teachers who will volunteer at the mission, and they will work in our skills lab. So somebody who maybe, again, hasn't necessarily had a successful educational experience may need to brush up on their math a little bit, or maybe they're having some difficulty reading or putting together a resume. So we rely on those volunteers to intersect with our guests to help in those steps. And then finally, Ohio Means Jobs, as we look at a county agency that really interfaces with people getting to work, getting those career services, we love to be partnered with them. And in our partnership with them, we have made it so that some of the services that are accessible to people in the area, they can start at Cherry Street so they can get registered for services, they can practice their work keys exams and get some of that taken care of, and then have them go out to the shared services building across town. So we're trying to bring together and have brought together just a wonderful team of people to wrap around the participant towards those next steps in their lives. So I mentioned in-demand jobs and living wage jobs. So we want to make sure that the programs that we offer and that we set up there are leading to jobs that are actually in the area and that will pay a wage that can get them out of poverty rather than keeping them in poverty. So that's where that partnership with our employers as well as with the county has been so vital to what we do. So we keep an eye on that. I have a business advisory group that comes together once a month made up of agency, educator, and employer partners. And we continue to look at the programming to make sure that it is offering what we need here in the Toledo area. We want them to keep a job, just not get a job and then move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. So a little bit about the programs, and this is a snapshot from last year. So we had 57 people successfully completed one of our training programs last year, and there were 13 different programs offered within the year then. You might say, okay, well, that sounds nice, but Couldn't they have more? Well, yes, we'd love to. But I want to just have us think a little bit about the stages of change that Anne was talking about. Because it does, it takes effort and you have to be ready. We can't just say that a job is going to solve all the problems. You have to be ready for that job. So to get to those 57 people, we actually started out with about 140 people that we talked to who said, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. I might want to be a welder or work in an office. So they weren't necessarily sure yet what they want to do. They kind of knew they wanted to do something, but they weren't there. And then from that, as we continue through the intake process, we look at what barriers to employment that they may have, get them connected with services, just continue that process that kind of keeps filtering down. So that 140 actually turned into about 84 people that went through orientation, down to 81 that actually attended the first week of class, and then the 57 that completed the program. So we know that it's a process and we know that they have to be ready. And we've had some folks that weren't quite ready yet. That's okay. We'll be there when you are. I put this together just as a quick snapshot for you. So I mentioned that the program started in 2016, and the Office Specialist program actually used to be a call center program. That was one of our first employers that came to us expressing a need for hiring. So you can see that call center was really one of the banner programs that got going. And then as we watch and talk to the employers over time, we've seen that the call center industry has changed a little bit over time. We have more folks that are working from home or working remotely in call centers. So we wanted to make sure to expand the opportunities for those students as they went into employment. So the call center program has actually morphed into an office specialist program. And I'm happy to say that I actually taught the office specialist program this morning. We had a new cohort of them kick off today. And we have a cohort of building trades that will be graduating at the end of the week. So we love to celebrate those victories with our folks and help them on to those next steps of employment. So how does this set up in terms of them actually participating in the classes? Are they college students or not? And that was one of the things that was real interesting as we navigated this, setting up these programs early on. For them to be college students, they all had to have GEDs or high school diplomas, and we had to follow the college schedules. You know, they have different regulatory bodies that say what they can do when and what have you. And we didn't want that lack of high school diploma to be a barrier to employment. Now, as a teacher, I will advocate for you all day. Yes, friends, please go do the GED and get that done. But I don't want that to stop you. And I'll share just a quick personal story. One of my sons decided that high school was optional for him. Don't get me started. He has now realized that was probably not the best decision that he made in life. It has taken him about 5 years to finally get his GED. Thank goodness he finally has, but he just, you know, that was something I wouldn't want to hold a person back from working for that period of time for lack of that kind of education. So again, I will cheerlead for you all day to do that, but I don't want that to be a barrier for you. So because of those types of things, we went through the workforce development divisions of our 2 college partners. And so these are non-credit, but they do receive a certificate of completion from the community college. And many of them also have industry credentials that are associated with it, speaking to our employers. So for instance, I mentioned our building trades class. First days of class, what those folks are working on is their forklift certification. So they will have that forklift card as something that they can present to a potential employer and add to their resume. Following that, they go into their OSHA 10 certification. So again, it is speaking to things that employers are talking about, and we're trying to get those successes built up early too. Some of these folks, again, they didn't necessarily have a successful high school career, and now they've earned something. They've earned a credential that they can use towards employment. So this is a list of some of the industry credentials that may supplement that community college certificate of completion. We also ask the community college partners if the person has had perfect or excellent attendance to please put that on the certificate too. Once again, it's something that they can show to employer, because we know our employers want people to show up. I'm happy to have you. Please come to work the next day. I need you. And I just wanted to highlight and thank some of our partners. I know some of you are in the room and those that aren't, and these are just a snapshot of them because it does take that village of folks coming around and us working together in partnership to help our folks towards that employment. Now, what I just wanted to, and I'll be brief on this one, illustrate that, workforce development is not an island unto itself. We realize that it's part of a bigger picture. So we have folks that are coming to us from the Ready for Life program at Cherry Street or from our community partners, and we offer a variety of services in that middle layer that folks can take advantage of based on where they are. So whether it be wanting to, refine your skills, again, if maybe reading and math are a problem for you, we have the skills lab. We have an opportunity to work through, Owens has been offering pre-GED classes at Cherry Street. We maintain a database of employers. So sometimes I go out and chit chat with our area employers just to, check out what they've got going, what kind of jobs. So we have a database of those available jobs that when people are looking to go to work, we can refer them to. The vocational training, and then one of our favorite days is Find a Job Friday, every Friday. We're probably serving 10 people a week or so where we're building resumes, setting up Indeed profiles, and just helping them towards those next steps. This model, I've talked about the partners and this idea of a hub. So I want us to think through a little bit of, as we're working with an individual, how are we wrapping around them to get them job ready? So we have our guest at the center of it all, and then we identify those barriers that we talked about in the funnel. Through our eyes, we also look at them from a workforce perspective. So what are some of the things that would make it difficult for you to get employment? Like Ann mentioned, the lack of identification. So let's work on that rather than we get to the end of it, get you through career training, and then you can't get a job because you have no IDs. So we're looking at them with barriers and helping them navigate that. We have the technical training, and the secret sauce for us is our job readiness training. We have a curriculum of, again, those things that our employers tell us are the other secret sauce or the other part of what makes a successful employee. Emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, prioritization, team building. So that's all part of that training. We wrap that around with employment assistance and then the follow-up care into employment. Quick highlights from 2022. So it's interesting to note that 25% of our graduates actually came that were residential with us. The other 75% are coming from our partner agencies that refer into the programming. They like that hub kind of environment that we have and having the programs right in downtown Toledo. And we're running last year about a 76 employment rate. So 76% of our graduates have employment. The other ones either maybe went on to further education, or because some of our folks, if you've been in long-term poverty, you don't always value permanence. So some of them we just have a little trouble keeping track of. They just tend to move right on. But we're doing the best we can to keep engaged with the folks. And I love to highlight our success stories. So this young gentleman went through one of our programming. He had quite a difficult past, but reached a point in his life where he was at that stage to say, yes, I am ready for action. I'm ready to make that change. So in partnership with Salvation Army, he went through one of our training programs, and I'm happy to report that very successful, wonderful person, and a year later is still employed. So those are the successes. And just briefly, a little bit about what our next steps are with this. We are launching social enterprise interventions. So social enterprise is kind of like a business that operates within a nonprofit. And then the intervention piece is staying wrapped around. So we are building out a small company within Cherry Street, and we will actually be deploying a learn and earn model. So the students that will be participating in this program, and yes, it's a food truck, they will be taking classes, they will have the wraparound services, and then they will actually start practicing and getting job experience by working on the food truck. So in talking with some folks who have been in poverty who haven't worked for a while, the concept of working, going from 0 to 40 hours in a week can be overwhelming. So this is a way for us to ease folks in and to stay intersected with them to help them towards that success rather than setting them up for failure. So our first one is set to launch later this year, and I have friends in Leadership Toledo who are working on number 2, but I can't tell you any more than that. So it's coming soon. So a very exciting time for us. I'll let you go. Yeah, you say nothing.
So we have great opportunities for people to participate with us, and we want to welcome you all to join us in what we're doing. Help us eradicate poverty in Toledo. Become one of our employment partners. Bring your ideas into Cherry Street. Let us know what you need. Do you need to hire somebody who has a specific skill set? Maybe that's our next employment classes that we can start right here in our urban center. We would love to hear what you have to say about how we can all come together and serve those who are in need and fragile, but who aren't without ability to move forward in their life. And so the secret of making progress is to get it started. And that's what we do. We get things started for people so that once they hit the door and they're out on their own, they can keep it going. Is there anything I can answer questions from any of you about any of our presentation? I'm going to keep Tami right here to make sure she can answer the questions about workforce development. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Okay. For the sake of time, if you guys have any questions, Ann and Tami are able to stick around to answer those. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you so much. And as a thank you, we have a book for each of you, The Tales of Toledo, written by one of our past presidents, Clint Mock, and we also will be making a donation to a post-polio fund in each of your names.
Thank you. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Next week, March 20th, if you'll be joining us here, we'll have Will Lucas, who's the local entrepreneur, founder of both Toll House and a little dark up here, Creato, and the brand manager for both Afrotech and Black Tech Green Money. Please note that the meeting will not be here next week. It'll be at the Huntington Center Arena Aquarium. And Jackie will be having details of how to get there, where to park in the spoke, and probably in the Monday email. For those of that are interested, we have book club meeting tomorrow, and we also will be having a happy hour on Thursday. So please check out the spoke for details. There is one committee meeting. Oh. Oh, gotcha. Okay. There's one committee meeting today in Jefferson C. It's down the hallway a little bit further, and that is the program committee. Thank you to all of our guests, our special guests from Moldova. Thank you to those that have been so great with their donations to the foundation for all these years. And thank you for all of our guests that joined us. We are adjourned.